All right, well, welcome to October TriEmbed. First timers? Trampas, have you been here before?
No, I haven't.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How did you find out about us?
I found out about you through the forge.
Through the forge, okay. Any announcements? Upcoming meetings or
There's a Michael King show the first full weekend of November out at the Fairgrounds.
okay. PCB Carolina, which is a printed circuit board trade show, is at McKimmon Center on November 9 or let me just look it up. Yeah, the 9th. It's free to attend. They will feed you breakfast, lunch. You can walk around the trade show floor and see 70 plus exhibitors. Many of them from North Carolina, some of them from all kinds of strange places.
I'm sorry, what date is this?
November 9th, Wednesday.
Oh, day after election day.
Yep. Starts early. They have donuts and stuff. Usually have a fried chicken or barbecue for lunch.
That was at the McKimmon Center?
Yes. You have to, well, you can register there, but you can register ahead of time. You get a free t-shirt out of it. There are some technical presentations, some of which you might have to pay for. I usually go and walk around the trade show and talk to exhibitors and
What was the name of it so I can look it up online?
PCB Carolina. That's printed circuit board.
Yeah, I was going to post that in the Slack.
Okay, yeah. So it's been posted to the chat.
Yeah, I've been there before.
Y'all might know this already, but All Things Open also is coming at the end of November, I think 1st and 2nd, or it's the main conference, and it's all open source stuff. It's really affordable downtown Raleigh at the convention center. I don't know what it's up to now. It started out at like $99 for 2 days, and it's been slowly going up over time. But I've been there a couple times, and they always have good, good sessions on things like using Git and DevOps, and you can just check it out. Unix stuff. They got the AI/ML tracks and all that stuff. But all the sessions are on the web. It's how to look at them. I've seen Rodney out there before.
Okay. Anything else that's going on that you know about?
Well, there's the regular meeting on Wednesdays at the Forge for midweek makers. We started off doing the mini mill Tuesdays and kind of moved it to Wednesdays. So if anybody's interested in coming down to the Forge, it's open for various kinds of making activities. We're playing with mini mills. We're building things. You want to learn to use a Glowforge laser cutter. I'm hoping somebody's going to be able to help me out with programming AT Tinies. I got a USB ASP programmer, and it doesn't seem to be working the way I'm expecting it to. But it's always interesting having interesting people there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one because I've been doing some of the same thing with stats based, and a week from this Saturday is the beginning Raspberry Pi, Arduino, and electronics workshop that I do.
So that's the 22nd.
Yeah, I call it Try Gray, and I'll post a link here in just a second. It's the one that Pete Stover started way back when.
Yeah, but it's a week from this on Saturday, right? It's not the 15th, but it's the 22nd.
Right, let me get a quick link here. Hold on.
Yeah, I'll be out of the country on that date.
Also on Wednesday evening, also at the Forge Initiative in Apex, is the Edger group, the TriEmbed group that's formerly called Corpus. It's doing the FPGA stuff. That's meeting concurrently with the adult making session that Glenn talked about. All right, anything else? All right, let me start up the problem of the month. All right. So last month, when I wasn't here, I think we did the push-up counter. All right, today, so HVAC heating, ventilation, air conditioning.
Correct.
So I have an air conditioner and a natural gas furnace with a dumb thermostat. And I want to monitor some things so that I know a little bit more about what it's doing, how it's performing. And so if you're not familiar with Problem of the Month, we pose a question and brainstorm on possible solutions for 15 minutes or so. So what are the kinds of things that I can monitor about my HVAC system, and what can I derive from that information that's of interest?
Well, first thing is you can, monitor the temperature difference in your house.
Okay.
I actually looked into this and actually started the process of putting something together. My intention was to put a DS18B20, which is a one-wire temperature sensor.
Yep.
On both sides of the coil, one on the intake side and one on the exhaust or output side of the heating/cooling coil, which tells me the temperature differential between the incoming and outgoing air.
This is in the unit that's indoors, inside.
Exactly, in the air handler unit itself.
Yep.
And what that will tell me is if the system is changing the temperature of the air. And obviously, if you're in heat mode, you want it to get warmer, and if you're in cool mode, you want it to get cooler.
Okay. Do you have a heat pump?
I do have a heat pump, yes.
So you only have one coil. So I have a furnace and a AC. So I got two heat exchangers. I just would need to make sure that my temperature probes are outside of the two of those, and I measure the same thing. Okay.
Right, and that does a couple of things. Is that it tells you, especially in when you're running the air conditioner, when you're running the compressor, if the compressor doesn't start. So if the system is moving air, and you can test that by monitoring the there's probably something low voltage signal, relatively low voltage signal that the thermostat sends to the fans that will turn on the fans, requesting things to power up. And if it's requesting heat or cool, and you're not getting a change in temperature, then it's a fair bet that either you've only just started the cycle and you're not actually heating or cooling yet, and if it lasts more than n minutes, your compressor hasn't started, and that chances are that means you need a new capacitor on your compressor to get it started, which is what started the process for me.
Okay.
This just happens to be that I do on the weekends anyway. A couple of things you want to be able to monitor with that is the fact that, like you said, I was getting a temperature differential. I was getting air movement, so I have a little tiny round fan that detects actual airflow. So I want to know if your air fan is actually turning on. And what can trigger these is a dumb thermostat does not have a ground, but what it's doing is it's shorting certain contacts that are, if you look at the color codes inside, and you just want to look for whether they're shorted or not, and then, which you can do with an op amp, and then see if the actual actions are occurring within the air handling unit of the thermostat air conditioner itself. And then, of course, depending on which contact's closed, whether it's running in cool mode or heat mode, and the appropriate temperature differential. So it's actually 3 things you should monitor with 2 probes and 2 op amps.
So tell me more about your air movement detector.
I'm sorry, 3 probes. Because they're all good as the little thing I believe it's just a rotary encoder. But all I'm detecting is I'm detecting just a single count. So I'm only doing the A count. And it's just how many ticks per minute. It's, it's a couple of thousand ticks per minute. Just to see that it's actually moving air in it. I have a hand calibrated based on that particular fan.
And where did you get the fan blades? Is this a 3D printed thing or commercial?
No, it's a commercial. It's about 1 inch by 1 inch. Doesn't stick out much. I'll see if I can find an online link to it for it real quick.
Okay, so it's designed to do that? Measure airflow?
Yeah, that's its purpose. And I believe, not BHO, one of those companies like that has one. Yeah.
About 20 years ago, I hooked up a system to my HVAC, but I kept it simple. I measured inside temperature, outside temperature, and then the current going into the HVAC system. And that told me
220 or 110?
220.
Okay.
And so that told me everything I needed to know. And so you have a measure of the power going into the HVAC system. You can assume an efficiency number for your HVAC system, and then you can calculate how much power is going into heating or cooling your house. And then based on the outside air temperature, you can calculate roughly your thermal loss, your thermal resistance of the house and capacity. And so if your fan stops moving, the house temperature will not be correct and you'll still have current draw. If your compressor stops working, your temperature goes up and you don't measure any current. And so it pretty much measures everything I needed to know.
Now, my air conditioner has 2 circuits. Right? One for the outdoor compressor and one for the indoor air handler.
The indoor air handler is just going to be the fan. It's not a significant load, but you can calculate it as well. But the compressor is where most of your load is.
Yep. And how did you monitor the current? Did you do clamp on?
I did a clamp-on Hall effect current sensor.
Okay. All right. Any other ideas of things we can monitor? Or things we can measure from what we're monitoring?
What do you want to do with the information?
Well, I don't know. All kinds of things. That's, somebody here is going to think of something that I haven't thought about.
Well, I like monitoring the inside and the outside temperature at the bare minimum, because again, you can take a look at the differential and see if if it's cold outside and you're running your air conditioning, you're better off shutting off the air conditioning and opening the windows.
Yes. Also, what I was looking at is if you have enough thermal mass in your house, you can predict what the weather's going to be tomorrow. Drop your temperature like 5 degrees below your set point in the morning or at night before the temperature gets hot during the day. And so it can increase your power bill if you can accept the greater variation in your indoor temperature.
Okay. Yep. So you wake up to a cold house.
You wake up to a cold house, and then as the day warms up, it doesn't have to cut the HVAC on when it's hotter outside.
Yep.
And you just set what your temperature threshold is, whether it's 5 degrees Delta, 3 degrees.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm brave enough to control my HVAC yet. But baby steps first, monitor.
That's what I do with my little handmade smart thermostats. It's not where a smart thermostat, but it's a temperature, humidity, CO2 type sensor that causes the airflow and out of airflow and heat or cool mode and basically my program set points and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have an issue with my downstairs. So I actually have two of these, one upstairs and one downstairs. And my downstairs one, whenever the service technician comes and does my cooling check or whatever, when he leaves, it's not working. He thinks it's working, but it's not working. And I have to go and I have to turn the power off at the circuit breaker on the breaker box, and let it sit a little bit, and turn it back on. So it's got this weird mode where it'll get messed up and it won't. If you switch it from heat to cool or something, it gets locked in the wrong mode. So I recently turned it to heat, and the upstairs unit is working. I can feel warm there. The downstairs unit the temperature is correct. I'm not trying to make much of a change, but I've never felt warm air coming out. And so I'm suspicious. So one of the things I'd like to know is, I'd like to look at that graph of the temperature coming in and out of the air handler and see how many cycles it has run over the last day. Is it zero and heat is just migrating from upstairs to downstairs, or outside to inside, or it's not like it's 30 degrees out and I don't really know if it wasn't heating.
Paul, what I'm working on right now actually, my current company, I'm designing HVAC environmental sensor devices, and actually, can I share my screen quickly? I'll show you this thing. Quickly, I think we're going to do that. Share. There. Maybe you can see that.
Yep, we can see it.
A whole bunch of blue boxes.
Each of box represents a sensor somewhere in the United States. Basically, these are all Silicon Labs BGM 210 devices, talking via Bluetooth to a gateway, which is a Bluetooth Wi-Fi converter device, which sends it out to data to Amazon. This actually uses graphic data from an Amazon data set here. And I go through and click on each one of them. This one here actually is on my house right now. This one shows. I see the graph, the temperature, temperature, pressure, humidity in the house. It's kind of fun watching that, especially during the summer when you see humidity goes up and up and up. If you start feeling very hot, you know how warm you're feeling, it's because it's the higher humidity. But there's the pressure, temperature. you see it running over the up and down during the day. But it gets cooler during the mornings, back up again cooler again, which is there, and warmer during the day there. And then also the humidity is here. Other devices, we built also, here's a, not another device, it's only one with my house. So here's also the house here, it shows the carbon dioxide level in the house over time graphed. Also volatile gases, which is basically like volatile gases, like propane, basically aerosols, alcohol, etc. Show there. It's kind of a stealth graph because the sensor tends to over-respond quickly to anything nearby, and so those high points I put a Q-tip with alcohol, it's for alcohol on it, passing near the sensor to show that. Another CO2 sensor there. And these actually also have other devices that do particulate sensors, little small devices. The fan pulls particulates through and pass through a laser to count how many devices. Particulates come through this period of time. We also have other devices like one here. There. Another device also in my house, temperature, but also set point gives a little thermometer I guess you can change. Think of this as basically put on a wall, you can change it down temperature of the house, but I believe the slide it down. Now, it's in another room, I can't give it right now, but this is that. This is what I work on. Just by watching the temperature alone, humidity alone, inside and out, as other people said, it's very cheap just to watch that alone. I wouldn't mind for my own house, I'm actually planning on adding this as well as adding sensors for monitoring my well pump when it comes on and off. We had a problem with that recently. Our tank got waterlogged, and pumps get on and off every few seconds, which is not good for a pump. I need to monitor it, have it again. Have people in the house heard it until they know it's happening. So how is it going on that way? And also, we mentioned monitoring the in and out feed temperatures of your coal will be very good for an HVAC system. So that's all I have.
So, Ron, your CO2 number looks high to me, right? 400 is normal, 1,000 is high.
Yep.
At 2,000, you start to pass out or something, right?
It's actually, it kind of comes and goes. Sometimes it's down below 400 in my house, but it's around 1,000. It's actually, they're showing 600 to 1,100 there.
Yeah, I was just reading that once your CO2 level hits 1,000, you need some circulation.
Yeah, there may be a DC bias on this because your lowest number is around 600, which is pretty high.
So I can go to a week scale. So it's been shown these numbers are verified in the office. In the office, they have lower numbers here in my house. I guess the bad thing, I guess. Here's showing the up to 1,100 or so here on the high end, down to the low end, or down to about 649 basically.
Yes.
Move the cursor over, I can see exactly what the value at any point in time is on the graph.
Yeah.
So are there a lot of people in this room at the time?
Just the wife and I and the dog on the floor. It's sensors on the floor about the dog.
Really, I'll be honest with you. This is high for 3 people.
Yeah.
I mean, for 3 people, 3 things breathing.
Yeah. If you can I might believe this, but I'm suspecting that there's some sensor issue here.
Interesting, because we had the same sensor in the office. It had lower numbers in the office. It had in my house. I just hadn't worried about it. But maybe it is an issue in my house.
We actually monitor CO2 in the forge as an analog to determine whether the air is stale and needs to be cycled for COVID reasons. And yeah, Linda starts getting worried when the numbers hit 800. It's a much, it's one giant open room. And we don't usually hit that. We usually start at 400 when there's nobody in the building, and we wind up 600 to 800. But like I said, once it hits 800, people start thinking about turning on more circulation fans and moving some people outside.
This is just another living room here, basically. My wife and I and the dog on the floor near the sensor. We haven't had any fans on in the house or HVAC running for about a week now, basically, because the temperature's been pretty good temperature, so maybe that's the issue.
I mean, if it's just you guys, it's probably not an issue. But if you had a mixed crowd of people that you didn't know, I would really consider these numbers to be high.
Something interesting though, like humidity, and I always thought that it should be possible to have like a, on a thermostat to have kind of like a real feel setting that would take into account humidity, because it can be whatever 72, 68 degrees or something, and if it's dry, that'll be super cold, and if it's like humid, then that can be comfortable.
Yep.
I'm looking for other sensors at other locations to see how they're doing. Most of those seem to be offline right now. I'm sure why, because they got to do upload a firmware just yesterday. They're actually in the process of flash, while all these boxes are empty right now. I don't see any other devices that do gases online right now. That one here is not showing CO2.
Can you check to see if there's a slight DC signal on that one? Because that'll raise your entire graph up, right? False.
It's an I2C based sensor. Just read I2C and tells the data from that. So there's anything wrong with the sensor itself.
What sensor are you using?
There are two of them actually. Let me find the part numbers that quick. Let's see.
EM828 or 680.
I'm trying to remember actually. Let's see. Go over to. You know where the source here. Don't see all this stuff. We've got a the red sensor using here. EE895 for the CO2 sensor. IAQ T-Box sensor for the volatile gases. MS 53 637 for the barometer. There, and also we use a DHT11 type sensor for temperature humidity as well, and also some thermometers as well on the set. Also light sensors. I don't have one of those house. Also light sensors monitoring that. It's kind of fun to watch. That one was in the office. You see the lights come on or off. Who walk by? You get change who walk by as well too. So that's all I had. So.
Thank you, Rodney. Other ideas of things we can monitor?
Movement at your front door?
Well, that doesn't tell you much about your HVAC system, but okay.
Well, you can also monitor. You can put a water leak detector in the drip pan, which means how many people have you talked to in the past several years that have had drywall problems because their drip pan or the condensate drain failed. The water filled up the condensate pan and then overflowed onto the drywall and the ceiling. If you have it in an attic, and crawl space.
And the attic switch, the shut-off switch doesn't work.
Yeah, there's supposed to be
My game used to get up to about 10 gallons and then they'll put a shut-off switch.
Yeah, but that you don't have a drip pan. I may be mistaken, but I don't think you have a drip pan on a what do you call it system? Air
heat pump.
Heat pump.
Right, heat pump.
Yeah, I have one on my AC.
You most certainly do have a drip pan if it's in if the air handler unit is in the ceiling, because if it fails, you as soon as it stops draining out the drain pan, out the drain condensate drain, it starts pouring onto the drywall, and that's no good.
Yeah, no, I mean it sounds logical, but I'm thinking about mine, and we don't have an attic. There's a crawl space and you're not supposed to put anything at all in that. We do have a crawl space under the house, and half of the HVAC is underneath in the crawl space under the house, and the other half is outside.
Okay.
You should have a drain in the crawl space for that one.
Yeah,
Mine does.
mine does as well.
Right, and if it's in the crawl space, it's less of an issue, and you don't have a drip pan. It just floods the
Mine has
floor.
a drip pan in the crawl space.
My basement's encapsulated.
You might have a pilot. Mine's
Yeah,
got
my one had a good band in the crawl space. Yeah, that's the drain we're talking about, and if that fails, my other one had a good band in the crawl space, but they raised it up so that it's hanging from the rafters as opposed to being down on the ground, and the new drain pipe is almost direct down, so they didn't see an issue with it ever plugging up.
I have a network with DHT 22 sensors all over my house, actually, after having an $18,000 repair bill basically about 3 years ago when a small leak in the pipe under the house, and it basically, we didn't realize it until basically the entire house was saturated in vapor barrier. So I've got one near the well pump, I've got one near the hot water heater, I've got one under each bathroom. So if any problem occurs, I can go pretty quickly, the humidity is rising there. I've also got one in the attic, so temperature in the attic. I've also got my shop outside, and each floor of the house as well, so I can measure temperature and humidity. And I'll talk through the ESP32's Wi-Fi to a Raspberry Pi using MQTT data. So.
Yeah, and maybe it's important, especially for veterans, because the exhaust fans don't always work or work correctly. That's important, but as far as the like a sewer detector or moisture detector, that's something that Paul had asked about in the previous question like this. Basically, we want moisture sensors on any hot water tanks, any water softeners, any washing machines, any bottom of cabinets and sinks, the bottom of the toilets. Just basically everywhere you're going to have a collection of water or spray water.
All right, any other comments or suggestions on our HVAC monitoring? All right, well, I think that was a good discussion. Okay, Trampas, are you ready to present ESP32 debugging to us?
Yes, I can show you the instructions I followed.
Okay. Did they work?
They work, yes.
All right, good.
So let me share.
There it is.
We see it.
So if you go to the Espressive website, they tell you to follow the instructions here on how to set up Eclipse to do debugging. And so it's pretty simple. Make sure you have the prerequisites. Basically, once you install Eclipse, you install the plugin for Eclipse. And to do this, you add in the URL into Eclipse for the Espressive plugin, and then install the plugin. And if anybody has any questions at any point, just holler. Once it's installed, it creates a new menu item in Eclipse for Espressive. And in here, you can download and configure the ESP IDF tools. And so all you do is click that, and it downloads and installs the Espressive IDF. Once that is installed, it needs to know the locations of the tools. And so they have in here, you can set this. It can also install them as well. Once that's all installed, there's more information on installing the other tools if you need to install them. You can create a new project in Eclipse, and you can just go to File, New, Project, and it has an expressive option now in Eclipse. And so if you want to create a new project, you can click on that, name it something. If we want to use the templates, one in here, for example, Blink, it renames your project name. So just a minor detail. And so once you have actually followed the instructions, got that set up, I had opened the Blink project. And then once you have the Blink project set up, you have to go in here and configure it for a debugger. And if you've used Eclipse before, this is very similar to everything else, where you go in here and configure what the project name is, what is the application load, whether you want to enable the auto build it, and then here's where you set up the debugger and the configuration file for OpenOCD. And so the board I'm using is a Expressive ESP32S3 board, and it has a built-in OpenOCD debugger within the chip itself. And so here it's using the configuration for that processor with the built-in configuration. They did not have this configuration option by these drop-downs. So if I change the drop-downs here, it will change what the configuration is, whether it's by so forth. And so I had to manually set this correctly.
Can you drop down the target little menu there? S2, S2, S, C3, and S3. Okay.
I'm having trouble finding the exact set of these instructions. Could you post that in the chat real quick?
Yep.
Thanks.
And so the way it works here is it starts the OpenOCD here, and then the debug in the GDB client is set here. And so it's using the Extensa ESP32 S3 ELF GDB. And then in the startup tabs is where you can set things up in the hardware as the debugging starts. Very similar to much everything else. In here, for example, if you wanted to, you could go in here and change this to a JLink executable path instead of the OpenOCD, which is often done. One other problem I did have in configuring this is with the ESP32S3 board, it will not show up as the JTAG unless you hold the boot line low while you hit reset. And that opens up, creates it enumerates as a serial port here.
So that's similar to if you were going to flash it.
It's similar.
Yeah.
The hardware IDs on this is 303 and 1001. And OpenOCD needs to use libUSB drivers, and by default, Windows 11, which I have, installed the basic serial port drivers. And so it would not actually recognize it as the JTAG adapter until I actually went in with Zagdig and changed it to be the WinUSB libUSB driver for that device. And once I did that, everything just works.
I would presume the Linux version not have that problem.
Correct. Linux version is probably a little bit easier that way. And once it's set up, you can actually disconnect if you wanted to, and then just go in here and I can click the launch and debug. The OpenOCD is very slow compared to a J-Link, and so it takes a lot longer to load everything. And here you see the console just opened up as it's, and then it stops at the app main. And now you can step over the code and so forth. And you can mouse over just like everything else with Eclipse ID debugging.
Can you get a call stack from here to see who called app main?
Yes, you can. You can see over here is the call stack on the left here. It actually shows it here. And normally this is working with FreeRTOS. If you had a bare metal, it would actually show you the entire call stack. And there's where we call that main. You can also view the disassembly code if you wanted to, and you can step through the disassembly. Over here, you got your breakpoints. You can define your breakpoints wherever you want, and then the local variables.
And how quickly do you get into expressive code they don't give you the source for? If you're going upwards.
I have no idea. I don't use haven't used ESP32 much at all. So. But I think most everything they have is they give you code for it. Rodney may know more since he has been using it more.
I'm sorry, what was the question? Or I missed something.
Does Expressive provide source code for most of their code, or do you only get to see the source code for what you write?
So here in the IDF components, you can see they do have the source code for like the timers, the FATFS source code, etc. So they do provide source code for most everything. And so it's not very hard to set up the debugger in Eclipse. You can get going with that. Again, most silicon vendors want you to get started developing with their processor very easy. So they make it very easy. The one thing I dislike about their on-chip debugger is there becomes a question if you wanted to use the USB port on the chip as a serial port or other functionality, how it works with being the JTAG debugger. You may not be able to use it for USB port or other purposes while you're using it for the JTAG.
Yeah.
And so a discrete JTAG adapter is probably a better option.
Yeah, most professionals set up firmware to multitask between, USB and serial and stuff. I doubt Expressive is on that.
Yes, I don't know how they set up for the JTAG. Is there any other questions?
So this is all done through the USB?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, no external hardware needed.
Now, you said something about zazzing or zapping or to do your serial driver. Was that documented in there?
Zadig. And basically, this is just a tool you can use to install the libUSB drivers. And so you can select your interface here and then say, tell it which driver you want to use for that interface. So right now, this driver is using the WinUSB 1.
And did Espresso tell you to do that, or did you have to go find that on your own?
I had to, when it didn't work and it wouldn't recognize it, I did a search on Google, and on Expressive Forum, somebody else had this problem. And I think it was Expressive. It was Expressive or OpenOCD.
Yeah.
And they said this worked, so I tried it.
Can this be done with other languages besides C++ or C or whatnot?
Yes. So basically, this runs GDB underneath the covers. And so as long as whatever language you use compiles down to a executable that is understandable by GDB, it can be used. And so that includes Rust and most other languages as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking Python. So Python's debugger is similar to GDB.
Yes, but I think that debugger would probably run through the interpreter for Python. And so it would probably be set up completely different than.
Yeah. No, you're right.
I wonder if we could mash up the debugger using CircuitPython and this debugger here, because people using CircuitPython on there is easy too.
I know this would actually be able to debug the Python interpreter, but I don't know about debugging your actual code, your Python code. Any other questions? So I can also show you I have several other projects here. And they're not figuring this one. I installed a different version of Eclipse to this. So in here, when you go to the debug configurations, you can see your different configurations and how they're set up to actually be debugged. And you can have different debuggers in here. For example, you can have the J-Link debugger in here as an option.
I looked at the Espresso website and saw that they had the Eclipse version, and then they also had some stuff about doing a command line.
Yep, and VS Code.
Oh, they do have VS Code?
Yes.
Cool. All right. If there's no other questions, thank you very much.
Yep.
And we're going to go to show and tell.
Well, I've been playing around with the Pico, but haven't really gotten anything actually running on it yet. I built a board that allows you to plug in the Pico, and you can then use a 5-volt supply. It's got this thing on it here, which converts the 5 volts to 3.2 or 3.3. The Pico actually runs anywhere between 2 volts and 6 volts or something like that. So it's actually kind of cool, but I haven't actually got anything running on it yet. So just getting the hardware together.
It'll be interesting to hear about that. And my understanding is that like you can run multiple threads.
On the
so
Pico? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's actually some third-party ones that are similar to the Pico. The pinouts are slightly different, but for the most part, they're the same. And some of those you can get up to 16 megs, where the Pico's only 2.
How about threads? Compute processor cores.
Oh, actually, processor cores. Good question. I don't remember how many cores are on there. So I'm actually setting this up for that TFT project that I'm working on. I'm gotten back into it again somewhat.
Okay.
I put Circuit Python on it, and Circuit Python is the one version of Python that's been causing me headaches. Everything seems to run perfectly fine on the Raspberry Pi. It even runs perfectly fine on the ESP32 using MicroPython, and it seems to run on other processors with MicroPython. As soon as you switch over to CircuitPython, you wind up with stack problems, which is nothing I can deal with. There's nothing I can do to solve that. I want to see if that same problem shows up on the Pico running CircuitPython, because the Pico can run both MicroPython and CircuitPython. Not at the same time, obviously, but so I'm switching between different boards to see, is this a board related issue or is it truly a CircuitPython related issue? I have seen comments about this problem dealing with CircuitPython before, though. So it looks like CircuitPython has had a problem with its stack. It blows the stack out for some reason. And they tell you, well, you can play around with it, change the size, but that means recompiling CircuitPython, and then so all of my code, because it's fairly large, I've got to do what's it called, P.o.t.M files. So I'm actually compressing them myself. My setup code actually takes out all the comments, takes out all, if there's like double lines with nothing in it, it pulls those out. It tries to get your Python as small as possible. And then I run it through the cross compiler, and both CircuitPython and MicroPython both have a have a cross compiler. The problem is that when CircuitPython copied the MicroPython stuff, they never renamed their cross compiler. So if you try to install it with pip, it overwrites the one from MicroPython. So I found that out the hard way. and theirs doesn't work with MicroPython. So they need to change the name of that. So I have to actually just put a -CP after the name so it doesn't do it.
I thought you did everything in virtual environments and nothing counts on anything else.
Well, but that's the thing. If you do things, I do, and I put it in virtual environments. But when you do a pip install, it's going to install whatever the file names are into the same virtual environment. And if you want both of them in the same virtual environment, which I do because I'm actually developing this, right? It's clobbers it.
Yeah, okay. There probably aren't too many people that are doing both.
No, they probably don't, and I'm probably the rare case.
Yeah.
But anybody that's trying to get code to run on standard Python, CircuitPython, and MicroPython is going to run into this problem unless they literally create separate virtual environments for each one, and that's nuts.
The guys in the Elements microcontrollers group are running exactly the rules as well. Those 3 guys over there, doing kind of what you're talking about, Carl, what he did. Louis Atkinson actually modified the library on MicroPython and uploaded it to Ava. And Aphids now starting to get around to all the circuit Python and micro Python guys. I forgot exactly what it was that resolved, but there was something where the two libraries of port, or two modules of port, could be not all got together, but debug it for both sides.
Well, so different libraries do the same things depending on which one you have installed. So they're not compatible. And I doubt CircuitPython's going to try to make it compatible. They went out of their way to make it incompatible to begin with. So
That's what we said.
So yeah, so I have issues with it. The only reason why I'm trying to get it to work with CircuitPython is because, hey, people use it. I'm not going to tell people which one to use. Let them figure it out on their own, you know. So I'd like to be able to give them my library that works on it. But so yeah, so the ones that it failed on, if you see this thing, there's two SHAOs. The one on the bottom runs the RP2040, which is the same thing in the Pico. The one on the top runs a different chip, and I forget which one it is. The bottom one will run CircuitPython and MicroPython, but the top one only runs CircuitPython. So I just changed, because the pinouts are identical for the two boards. They're both like $4 or $5 boards. They actually cost more than the Pico does. And the Pico does like 100 times more than those do. Except the nice thing about them is they're small. You know, if you've got a really small job, something very specific you want to do, you don't have the extra room. These are great for that.
Is the Pico in stock?
The Picos, yeah. So the Picos don't have a problem with stock. I just saw somewhere where I forget who it was, said that they had like 200,000 of them in stock, and something along those lines. So yeah, there's no problem with the Picos. The problem is with the RPIs, and the reason they're having problems is because Raspberry Pi Foundation is prioritizing the what do you call it boards? The those real small ones that are used in industrial environments. Definitely the compute modules.
The compute boards?
The compute modules, and they're specifically prioritizing those for companies that need them for products, which I can understand, because these companies could go out of business if they don't have these boards, right? But at the same time, what was Raspberry Pi first created for? It was created for normal users, you know, DIY people, schools, education, but none of that stuff's available. You can't get a regular Raspberry Pi anywhere right now. But the Pico you can get. So,
all right.
Carl, for your library, could you not write it in C and then make it callable from Python, and then that would?
It's not quite that simple. The problem is that I have a C, so there is a C version, which is what I basically copied I mean, I looked at the C and then wrote it in Python based on that C, but I have now gone in and tremendously optimized it so that it works much better in Python than a straight convert from the C++. The C++ uses flash memory to store a lot of stuff, and you can't do it that way in Python. So that code all had to change. Plus, if you normally just use lists and send lists off to the ESP, it's very slow. So I had to convert all the code to use what are called byte arrays in Python, which I mean, my tests originally so I do all the testing. I run the unit tests on the Raspberry Pi. That you can't run them on a regular microcontroller like a ESP32. You just can't run tests on that, because you've got to import the entire test framework, and they don't even make them for those chips. So But the original test took 20 minutes to run. After I optimized it, it was down somewhere between 5 to 6 minutes. I mean, almost cut the timed execution time of all of the code down by 2/3, close to. So, but this, you can't do that if you're calling the C stuff, because you're still going to have to send it lists and stuff. It was a bigger problem. Plus, I found actually a lot of bugs in the C++ code that this guy wrote in the process of converting it to Python. The only thing I didn't implement is doing bitmaps. I'll eventually implement that, but right now it draws squares filled or not, triangles filled or not, circles filled or not, a standard text, which is like this 3 fonts that it comes with, and then there's literally hundreds of GFX fonts, which are the ones that Adafruit uses. And so any standard Adafruit font would work on this. But you got to convert it to Python. So I actually wrote a special piece of code that'll take the header files, which is what all the fonts are in, and convert it to a PY file. And then you just do a standard Python import. Works perfect. It works great. I've got it working perfectly using MicroPython on an ESP32. It works. It works with MicroPython on this bottom guy. It's just CircuitPython I'm having problems with. So that's why I'm kind of messing around with the Pico now. I want to see if a little bit heftier machine at least will run it properly than the smaller one. Anyway, it's coming along. I mean, the basic functionality is all there at this point, and it works perfectly fine for RPI. So,
what's the general idea of what you're trying to do?
So what it is it. So you see the TFT display? This guy? You just click on my image, it'll blow it up to full screen so you can see it.
Yeah, I see it.
And so that's basically a TFT display. This is a small one. Eventually, my code will also run the slightly larger TFT display, which I have here. This is the one that Paul is waiting for. This is the bigger one.
With touch.
Excuse me?
With touch.
With
Nice
text
SD card.
and graphics. So this
I think
one
he did
also
that.
has a what do you call it?
Stylus.
A touch sensitive. That I haven't figured out how to do yet. The other display doesn't have a version with touch screen.
So this is like a module to use with that, like to integrate with something else?
So this is right. So this is essentially a library, an API,
Cool.
which you would then pull in, and then you would write your own code around it using the API. So what I've written is all the unit tests are only for the Raspberry Pi. However, I have written example code that run on various different microcontrollers. And this is where I am right now, trying to get that all to work right before I do official release. Also, there's a build script that if you've got your own microcontroller, then you're gonna have to build it, because all the code has comments in it and all sorts of other stuff all over the place. There's special stuff in there for tests and whatnot. That all gets ripped out when you run my build script, and just leaves you with the final package that's PY. I think it's a PYM file, or I can't remember the exact extension after it gets built.
Is this
So I also have a curses. a curses tool that allows you to pick the fonts you want. If you decide to pick fonts, because you don't want to put every font in the book in there. It'll just blow up the memory on any microcontroller.
And you're removing comments and compressing things to save memory space, programming memory?
Well, so it does two things. One, it saves tons of memory space on the flashes that are in these microcontrollers. And it'll also save space. Well, it isn't going to save so much space when it actually pulls it up in memory, because the interpreters should actually cut out all that crap anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
However, the thing it does is it makes the entire package smaller and a little bit leaner. It's a little bit more difficult to read after you put it through. Of course, if you use the compression stuff, the cross compiler stuff, you can't read it at all. It's in some sort of like P code or crazy thing. And you have to remember, you got to have the right cross compiler for the version of MicroPython or CircuitPython that you have. So my docs actually recommend that you update your MicroPython to the latest version, and then tells it tells you how to pull down and do all the stuff with the cross compilers. Without the cross compilers, it'll blow up memory on almost any microcontroller.
Yeah, actually, cross compile does make it a lot faster too when you trim down like that.
Well, I'm sure it makes it faster, right? But the real thing that sped it up was dealing correctly with the byte arrays. So instead of the original code, C code, would say it would actually do a complete turn on the SPI driver, send one pixel, turn it off. It would also be flipping other registers, and I said, that's nuts. So I've cut a lot of that stuff out of the original C code. So these controllers on these boards actually have a function in it that provides you a window on the board. And you've described what size that it's rectilinear, okay? And it says, okay, you don't have to give me coordinates for the pixels anymore. You just have to send me a series of pixels to fill up that entire thing, and it'll just go to the next pixel and write that. So you can essentially create a bitmap image by doing that. And it's extremely fast. So you just set up one set of control registers and just keep pumping data. And every data point in the byte array essentially moves the internal cursor or the internal place where that pixel gets written within the window that you've set up. So my code does that. It actually creates that window for you. That was originally done in the C++ code. So that was a very good feature in that C++ code. I've never seen it in anybody else's code though that does this. I didn't even know that existed until I was reading through the C++ code, but it works. It's really fast. So essentially I take a rectangle for the entire screen and set the whole screen black, and then start writing on it. I've changed the code somewhat, so you can change that. You can rewrite it to a different color if you want a white background or blue background or something like that. You can do that. But you also have to remember, every time you write on these screens and you want to fill it in, you've got to refill in that background. It doesn't just figure out. It's not like a computer that's really smart and has a GUI interface, and the GUI interface keeps track of where all the boxes are and then automatically backfills it. You can't do that. You got to do that yourself. So I've also made that a little bit easier for clearing out fonts and other stuff that the original C++ code didn't do. So it's actually it's out on my GitHub, and you can actually pull it down and play around with it if you want. I think I put the instructions are out there. I think my working branch is now the same as main, so you can probably pull main at this point.
Sounds like you could also contribute to the C++ library and optimize it for sysbugs.
Yeah, I've been thinking about actually putting some bug reports into the original, because he's on GitHub also, and actually say, hey guy, I'm writing a Python version of your code, but I found a bunch of problems in your code while I was doing that. And, here's some suggestions on what you can do to speed it up. I don't know if he's still maintaining it. I haven't seen him check in anything lately, so. But there are a few glaring bugs in his code.
All right. Anybody else have show and tell? I'm doing much Arduino stuff. Taking a welding class and doing some stuff at the barn, but not much Arduino.
I don't have much to show for it, but while we were talking this evening, I finally managed to get a brand new USB programmer for an AT-Tiny working. I bought, if I can share my screen, here it is. I'm just going to share my entire screen. Share. There we go. I bought this programmer and followed some various different tutorials on getting it working. Has anybody else moved to the Arduino 2.0.0? I realize it's my own fault for moving to a 0.0 release, but I have not been able to get it to work with the 2.0.0, but I had an old copy of Arduino 1.8.10 installed, and I am now successfully programming and making changes to my my AT-Tiny 85. Basically, you have to select board.
Yeah, I've been using the 2.00 RC3.
Okay.
And yeah, I've had no problem with it, really. There were some problems with some of the earlier versions, but this one I haven't had any problems with.
Right. Interestingly, when I take this code and upload it here right now, I can't show you my USB because it's plugged in directly. But it says uploading. It says done uploading, and it changes behavior. But if I close this and launch the Arduino 2.0, it takes a bit to load. But the same sketch on 2.00.
You got a slightly newer version than I do.
Right. If I look here and the same things are selected, it's got a AT-Tiny 2545 85, and I've selected 1 megahertz clock, the 85 processor, and the same, I believe it's the same
USB
programmer, although it might be this one. And when I do, I select upload, and it says, hey, a programmer is required to upload. So it doesn't like, I don't know if this is a bug or if this is something that I'm doing wrong. It's quite possible either way. But no matter which one of these programmers I select, I get the same failure. A programmer is required to upload.
And you are plugged in. Did you actually, are you on Linux or Windows?
Windows.
Okay, so, well, I mean, the same idea relates, have you checked to make sure the COM port on Windows is actually active?
Well, there's the device right there. There are no ports listed. That's the thing about this device, is if you look here under Tools and look at the 2.0 doesn't give you a choice when you once you've selected the programmer like so. It doesn't give you the option to select port.
Really?
I don't see it. You?
No, I don't see it there either, but I'm looking at mine and I do have a port selection.
But do you have the AT-Tiny 25?
I'm not using that chip, so it
Right,
may be
exactly.
independent.
Right. But if I close this and I switch back to the Arduino 1. Whatever it was, 1018, excuse me, A10, if I select Tools, I've got the AT-Tiny 25, 45, 85, AT-Tiny 85, clock internal 1 megahertz, and you see the port is grayed out. You can't select it. If I click get board info, it says please select the port. It doesn't give me the option. It's not on a port. It doesn't know anything about a port. It's just
On the forum, there is a note about this.
Is there?
Yeah, I sent that in the link, but the guy said it's an IDE2. You need to select from the menu sketch upload using programmer.
Okay.
Control
So
Shift U.
close this out, and then we'll go back to 85. This one.
That reminds me that the new 2.0 it has a cool boards thing, I guess, where you can enter a URL. I don't know if anybody uses Teensy, but I always had to run the Teensy Arduino installer into the Arduino directory, and now there's like an integrated way to do it by putting the URL in there.
So, I'm sorry. What?
Sketch. Upload using programmer.
Couldn't. All right, so hang on. I think I have. I think it's supposed to be USB Tiny ISP. Sketch. Upload using programmer. That's it. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your assistance. Why they would. Okay.
Well, if I helped you a lot, I would tell you not to use Arduino.
Well. Remember, I'm a code newbie. I'm not very good at this stuff.
Yeah, but I've been using the API, their new, ISP, or whatever they call in this thing.
IDE.
IDE, right. I've been using that in preference to the older one, because it does a lot of things that the older one can't do.
Yeah, I like the fact that it gives you autocomplete on, if you type something in here into the development environment, and it's got an editor that actually functions instead of that P.o.S. that was in the previous one.
Yeah, well, that was originally based on the processing software, essentially a retooling of the old processing stuff.
Yeah. I always used Notepad++ and external editor with it, and that made it usable, but I'm hoping that the 2.0 is going to be a little bit easier to do.
Well, it's great. Arduino's IDE finally caught up with the 90s.
So hopefully maybe next week I'll have, or next month I'll have an actual functioning circuit running in AT-Tiny. My goal here is to build an emergency puck that you can put basically like a road flare. They sell them to run on AAA batteries, but I'm not a big fan of AAA batteries, so I'm going to make one of my own that uses a rechargeable 18650 and runs off of an AT-Tiny.
And blinks. Sounds like 555 project to me.
Yes, except with the AT Tiny 885, I can use an input button and change the blink pattern. And this will also
Don't make fun of the 555 timer. It's a pretty cool device, considering what it is.
It is.
That thing can, man, it can do so many different things. It's amazing.
Right, anybody else? All right.
I have a bunch of boards I did that are a Arduino Nano footprint with a ATSAM D21, which is the Nano Zero or whatever Arduino Zero board, if anybody needs some. The ATSAM D21 is used on the Arduino Zero board, I believe it is. It's been out for a while. It's 32-bit ARM processor, M0 processor, 48 megahertz. I've got a bunch of boards that are in the Arduino Nano footprint.
And you're looking to share them if people need something?
Yes, I've got about 100 of them.
Oh.
They're just a small little board.
Well, I can't speak to anybody else, Trampas, but I'm still figuring out what the Arduino Zero is. So I'm doing a web search and looking at what's there. I hadn't heard about it.
It at least uses a modern processor, or semi-modern. It's M0 still.
Yeah, Arduino is also using the RP2040 and some stuff too.
Trampas, did you go with a USB-C or is it still micro?
Micro. This was done how long ago? Put date on it.
It's down there in the bottom. It's down there in the bottom corner of that page. I can't see it.
Yeah, it's automatically updated today's date.
Oh, well, that's the wrong date then.
Yeah. Looks like it's done in 2016, so.
Oh, all right. I forgive you then.
I don't think USB-C existed at that point in time.
Is the Zero supported in the IDE?
Yes.
Boards Manager. Look at that, it is. Yeah, whoever was saying earlier, the boards manager, you can now sort on it as well. And actually do a search on a particular thing, and if you type 0 in there, son of a gun if there isn't a 0 there.
All right, anyone else? Okay. We'll see you guys in a month, if not sooner.
Yeah, hopefully I'll have
Sounds
the
good.
video edited before I leave on my vacation, because I'm leaving the 20th, coming back on the 5th of November.
All right. Thank you for recording, Carl.
Yep. Let me kill it.